How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
At Starbucks, we've more than doubled paid parental leave, now up to 18 weeks. Which means Starbucks baristas can spend more time with the best company they know, their families. At Starbucks, benefits like parental leave are just the start.
Whether it's a movie night or just midday, Skinny Pop is a salty snack that keeps on giving. Made with just 3 simple ingredients for an irresistibly delicious taste and a large serving size that lasts. Deliciously popped, perfectly salted. Skinny Pop, popular for a reason. Shop Skinny Pop now.
Hey, it's Sydney Sweeney. I'm not here to tell you to buy American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney, Hasbury jeans.
You see what I did there, right?
Welcome into the Tour Coach, everybody. I'm your host, Tony Ruggiero. First of all, we're excited to be joining the Golfer Gang Network, which is a collection of podcasts just like us, just like ours. It's all people who love the game, love the journey. They've got some great stories to share. And here on the Tour Coach, you're going to hear a collection of conversations from the people I meet around the coaching and teaching world. And every story has a lesson, and every lesson is designed to help you enjoy, love, coach, and play the game of golf better. And we couldn't do that at all without the support of our sponsors, especially Mitch McConnell, Buick GMC. The folks there have been with me through it all from the very beginning, as well as Shrixon Cleveland Golf. It's been a hell of a run with those folks, coming up on almost 24, 25 years. You got Bushnell, Vineyard Vines, our newest sponsor, Epic Western. Their tequila drinks often fuel some of our late night podcasts. You need to go on epicwestern.com and just look at what they've got to offer. Order some in for yourself. But these next few Tour Coach podcasts are very special to me. I did this once before. In going through the old Dew Sweeper archives, my old friend and former producer of the Dew Sweepers, Ralph Carroll, dug up some of the old series and conversations that I used to have with my longtime mentor, Hank Johnson, who was a Golf Digest Top 50, Golf Magazine Top 100. He was a PGA Teacher of the Year, and in my estimation was one of the most brilliant people I ever was around. It's no secret we had a interesting relationship, crazy up and down, but he's so responsible for everything that I do today. And this next series of podcasts here is going to be taking these old conversations from the Dew Sweepers that I had with HJ on a series he did on power, and we are going to replay those. But first, before that, Wayne Flint, who both him and I came up under HJ, and then Jackson Koert, who just because he's come up under me, knows so much about HJ, has heard all these stories. Sit down and we take the old radio interviews and kind of discuss them and put them in more modern day times. So super excited to deliver these episodes called Power. The Power episodes with HJ, some insight into what he thought, how it's aged, how it can help your game, and how it's influenced us as teachers. And if you're a teacher or a player, this is well worth the listen. Once again, thanks to all our sponsors. Excited to be part of the Golfer Gang Network. Hope you enjoyed these next several podcasts. I'm excited to bring them to you. It brings back some nostalgia, but lots of good times coming up, trying to learn how to coach and teach this crazy game. So stay with me. It's an exciting episode. It's going to help all of you play better here on the Tour Coach. Welcome into the Tour Coach, everybody. Once again, this is the second part of a series that we kicked off in the last episode where our good friend Ralph Carroll, who was my longtime producer of the Dew Sweepers and keeper of all Dew Sweeper things on his computer. He's got everything we ever recorded. It's unbelievable the shit he's got in there. But anyways, every show we ever did for 17 years, I think it was, or 15 years, anyways, found these old episodes, these old recordings that Hank Johnson, our longtime mentor, and I did with me on the radio show in this series. We did one several months back on Golf Simplified, where he simplified it down, and it was a huge hit. We had a lot of people comment on it. You remember old Tim Watts, Wayno?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tim
loved it, I bet.
Loved these things, right? He was there in the early days of these. So, but anyways, a lot of people comment on them. And then, so going back, I was Clint, our producer, we were talking about things, and I said, hey, man, everybody's like, let's pull another one of these series out. They're so good. And so we talked last time about how interesting it was, and Jackson, you had a great quote about how how simple it was, but yet, he found simple ways of explaining difficult things. And the first part of his series on power was about the pivot. And in the first part of this interview, he kind of recaps that. And he talked a lot about the sequence and the way you wind the lower body up with the upper body, which I thought was fascinating. And he talked a lot about stuff. I didn't say this in the last one, but I think Jim McLean would love. A lot of it was X Factor-ish, right? And elastic loading and all of that, and creating a stretch. Let's talk a little bit about the second part, Wayno, and we'll let you kind of lead this off, and then we'll go to Jackson about what the hands and arms do. And I think if you look at it in the world of golf instruction today, I think the Sean Foley's with the Pro Sender and a lot of those things would agree exactly with what HJ was setting there. It was talking about there. And I still use so much of this, and with the stretchy band that we use under the foot, how it helps you learn to set the right wrist, to flatten the left, to square the face. I think he was spot on, and I love this episode. Talk a little bit about it, Wayno.
Well, once the body starts to turn, the upper body starts to turn to the right and starts to wind up the pivot, it starts to move the hands and arms. And what you want the hands to do is you want them to get hooked to the club correctly. That's why I catch a little grief from a lot of people, but I spend a lot of time early on with younger golfers or let's say not as skilled golfers, trying to get them to really put their hands on the club correctly, so that when it is time for once their hands get connected to the club and are holding the club, when it is time for their wrists to start to move where they're told to go by their arms, we want them to move correctly. And when they do move, we want it to make the face do the right thing, because the face is controlled by the back of the lead hand. And so that's really, really important to be able to get those hands connected to the club correctly. And then when the body starts to move to the right, and the right arm, the trail arm, right arm for a right-handed golfer, when the right arm starts to bend, because your hands have pressure against the grip and against each other, if the pressure in your hands stays constant or consistent, which it should, that will tend to cock and flatten the left wrist or the lead wrist and get the face to stay nice and square. And it'll keep the pressure the same in the left hand and the right hand working against each other. And that way, when you get to the top in the right place and it's time to transition, into the beginning of the downswing and shift and start to deliver the body and the arms and the hands down into a position to hit the ball, they've got to be able to control the face. And you want them to do that with very relaxed and light wrists and hands, but still constant pressures, so that there is some stability there. And if you can do that, that'll produce more and more and more speed. Everybody's looking for more speed. And that'll produce the speed, instead of just locking your arms up with a bunch of tension and swinging real fast. That doesn't really produce any speed. In fact, your speeds probably get slower if you do it that way. But if you can clamp your hands on there correctly, keep the pressure against each other, move the arms and the hands and the club to the right by turning your upper body, letting your right arm bend and your wrist respond to that, you're going to have a good square club face, and you're going to be ready to have a good transition down into impact, and then ultimately on through to the finish.
Yeah, I Jackson, I'll turn it to you, but I again, kind of going back to what I said, I thought the way explained it. I thought, again, that's something that could help. And again, I thought the one really good point in there was about, I think I asked something, you talk to people about when they need to do it. And, he talked really, though, like if people aren't hinging and setting their wrist correctly and square in the face, a lot of times it's a grip issue, which I think in this time where there's all these training aids and there's all this stuff and people are looking to do different things with the face, they get away from the fact that sometimes just fixing the grip allows a lot of that to happen correctly. Jackson?
So this was probably, I liked them all, but I think this was the one that I wrote down the most from because there were some really good lines. So I'm going to read you a couple of my favorites. I thought it was funny how, and that's why I asked about when we did this last time, because some of the stuff was, the picture was the same. But anytime he talks about the hands and the arms, he always says it's a function of other things going on in the swing. Right? Yeah. And I think that is so good. And then when he's talking about it later, the hands and the arms, he talked about how it's a misleading picture if you don't understand what's going on. I don't know. There are just so many like good little tidbits.
Now I can tell you this from working for him and teeing balls up for 10 years. I know Wayne, he had a point he was trying to make about somebody else on social media when he made that one, right? Jackson, I come by the ability to make zingers at other teachers authentically. I come honestly, right?
You got it honest, Tony.
But again, I mean, that was his, you got to also, when we started doing these, social media online stuff was in the very beginning where we were getting questions from people on the tee. You remember this at Sandestin, Wayno. Yep. People would say, I read this online. I read this. I saw this, right? And that was a big thing for him, right? If you're just looking at this, you're missing the rest of the picture. His big thing was always that in teaching Wayne and I and us developing was like, we should be learning to fix the one thing that makes all that other stuff happen. And I think, don't you think, Wayno, that's where he was going with that?
I do, Tony. I do think that. And, I find myself, it's interesting going back and listening to some of his old stuff because, I'm like, and I went home today and I had to just run home for a quick errand before I went and taught another lesson and then do this with you guys. But I remember I walked upstairs and I was talking to my son, Alex, and I said, boy, I just, had listened to something from HJ and I said, he was really something. Sometimes he was hard to deal with, but man, was that guy smart. He really was. I said that to my son. I was like, man, that guy was really smart, and I look at what I say in lessons, almost every day at some point. And I tell people all the time, if you can get your hands and wrists on there correctly, and you can get the pressure correct in your hands, and you can turn your body, you transfer your arms and power in your arms, and your arms kind of just go where they're told to go, and they tell your hands and wrists what to do. And that's the function of everything in the swing that Jackson's talking about. So, he had a way of putting things out there, very eloquently. He was a gifted speaker. There's no question about that. I mean, you and I saw him deliver a bunch of speeches, and he was world class at that. He really was. And he definitely had a way of putting things out there to get people to think. And, that's why so many people have, come out under his teaching tree and all been very successful, because he never would give us the answers. He would always give us something more to think about that we would come back with him, and we'd ultimately run into the answer somewhere down the line, thinking about more and more and more. So that, that was part of his deal. And I mean, he was really good at it, obviously.
And I still have times I'll be teaching and something hits me and I'm like, well, shit, that's what he meant.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So anyways, guys, this has been fun. Everybody listening, the best part's coming up right now. You're going to listen to an old segment from me and Hank Johnson on the tee with Hank Johnson from the old Dew Sweeper days, from our radio days. It's fun to go back down memory lane and revisit these and also share some of the insight with you. We'll be back in the next episode as we tackle the sequence out of the top.
Icy Hot Pro with 2 max strength pain relievers targets multiple pain receptors. Ice works fast. Heat makes it last.
This episode is brought to you by Diet Coke. You know that moment when you just need to hit pause and refresh? An ice-cold Diet Coke isn't just a break. It's your chance to catch your breath and savor a moment that's all about you. Always refreshing, still the same great taste. Diet Coke. Make time for you time.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Shh. Hear that? Big waves are calling. Dive into refreshment with Kona Big Wave. Tropical flavor and the taste of aloha in every drop. This summer, don't just listen. Join Kona on the Big Wave Bonfire Tour. More information at konabigwave.com/bigwavemusic. Kona Big Wave. Liquid Aloha. Copyright 2025 Kona Brewing Co., St. Louis, Missouri. Mahalo for enjoying responsibly.
Welcome back into the Dew Sweepers, everybody. It is a thrill, as we do every week, as well as informative, to go on the tee with Hank Johnson, our Dew Sweepers insider, Golf Digest top 50 instructor, and PGA Teacher of the Year. And this week, we continue to build on what we did last week, and I know it's going to make all Dew Sweepers happy, and as we're going to continue to teach people how to have power in their golf swing. And, Hank, we got a good one in store for them today.
Well, we do, Tony, and we're just going to build on on the last segment we did. In the last segment, we talked about starting the swing from an athletic position so that you're ready to stabilize all the forces during the swing and making an effective wind-up with your body by winding the top of your body against the bottom of your body, your upper body against your legs to create elastic loading and coil in the big muscle groups of your upper legs and hips and lower trunk. And this week we're going to add the role of the arms and hands to that preparation for the downswing.
Well, I think it's good that we started where we did, because we had a lot of questions or comments actually that came in over the week that talked about, they couldn't believe how important the setup and the posture was towards their power. So I think we helped enlighten some people, and hopefully we'll do the same here as we help show people what the role of the arms and hands are in the windup.
Well, I think the thing to remember is that the arms and hands don't really create the power. They transfer the power that the pivot creates through the hands and wrists and into the club and eventually into the ball. So they're not power producers; they are power transfers, and that's a very important element of what we're trying to get across.
Hank, don't you think of all the things maybe that we've ever said here on the Dew Sweepers? That's one thing that people that struggle with the game of golf really don't understand, is that they're always trying to add power and add hit with the hands.
Well, when you look at a golf swing and, one of the tour players is hitting balls, it looks like what they're doing is waiting until the last minute and then swinging the club through the ball with their wrist. That's the way it appears. That's just not what's happening. They're not doing anything to swing the club. The club is being swung by forces that they create by rotating their body. So it's a very misleading picture if you don't understand what's really going on.
Well, let's talk now about the hands, what the hands are and what they actually do.
Well, if you just think of your hands as a pair of adjustable clamps that attach you to the club, they're at the end of your arms, and they each have a hinge just above them that lets the club swing. But basically, you place your hands on the club so that the club itself can swing freely, and so that the club face will strike the ball squarely without you having to control it or manipulate it. That's the purpose of the grip or the placement of the hands on the club.
Once again, it gets back to things, Hank, that we've talked about here for 3 years now on the Dew Sweepers and in segments with you, that if from the very beginning, if your grip and in the setup isn't correct, it really limits your ability to hit the ball squarely and consistently and straight. Hank, we've talked about the hands. Now let's talk about the wrists. I know as a teacher, I get it. I'm sure you do as well, and that is people want to know what the wrists are supposed to do, when they're supposed to hinge. So let's go ahead and educate them about the wrists and what they're supposed to do.
Tony, ideally the wrists are just a pair of hinges that are actually very passive in terms of applying any force. They transfer the force that the pivot is creating and allow the club to swing, but in and of themselves, they don't have any power. And a lot of people, again, have a misconception that you're supposed to snap your wrist during the swing, and all that does is to cost you power. So they just allow the club to swing, and they have to be properly aligned at address to maximize the potential for accuracy and power so that the club gets back against the ball correctly. Now, the address position of these elements, to me, is so individual that it's very hard to describe in a general session like we're having, and it's best handled by a qualified teacher in an individual lesson.
I agree, and for all you dew sweepers out there, know that all of this information is going to be up there on dewsweepersgolfshow.com. You can go back over Hank's notes here on the hands, the wrists, and the arms. Hank, when people talk about do they have enough wrist action in their golf swing, what's your answer to that when people ask what the wrists are supposed to do in the golf swing?
Well, if a player is having to do anything consciously with his wrist, there's something else wrong. He either has a faulty grip or excessive grip pressure. There's something preventing the wrist from doing what they should do, because it should be a passive and almost an unconscious motion that they make. So I start looking for the reason that the wrist action is faulty, and usually it's either a bad grip or too much grip pressure, or a lack of understanding that they're supposed to operate on their own, and the player is trying to over-control them.
When you see a player, Hank, we have questions that people say they're not sure when they're supposed to hinge the wrist going back. Hank, if they have a good grip, should it happen on their own?
Well, it's a function of other things that are going on in the swing. Tony, if a right-handed player keeps their left arm extended, then somewhere in the backswing their right arm has to start to fold at the elbow. So that side of the triangle of their arms and the shoulders begins to get shorter. Now, when that happens, that actually cocks the wrist, because those angles are tied together. When your right elbow starts to bend, it cocks your left wrist. And when your right elbow starts to straighten, it uncocks your left wrist. So that your wrist cock is a result of when you start to load your right arm by bending it at the elbow in the backswing. And that's an individual thing, and it's mostly based on the flexibility of the player.
Let's talk now, Hank, about the arms. I know you've got a great deal here on the website, dewsweepersgolfshow.com, about the arms and about how they're the lever system. So let's go ahead and talk about that, the role of the arms.
Well, the lead arm, the left arm, for a right-handed player is the primary lever in the swing, and it's really kind of the heartbeat of the swing, and you're trying to create as much force with it in the forward swing as you can, but right now we're trying to get it back into the correct position so we can do that. Now, the rotation of your body swings the lead arm to the top of the swing, and the trail arm functions more like a piston. It bends and straightens, and it supports the extended but relaxed condition of your lead arm, and it also helps to raise it to an appropriate position at the top of the swing. So the left arm swings, and the right arm bends so that it can straighten in the downswing like a piston.
Hank, you talked about the left arm being straight. Don't you think people confuse that often with they try to make it stiff? And it's you said that the left arm's relaxed. It's not stiff at the top of the backswing.
No, it can't be, because if it's stiff and full of tension, then it can't swing with enough speed. And really, this trailing arm functioning like a piston is providing a little push-out support for the lead arm all the way through the backswing, so it's really holding the lead arm straight.
Now let's talk about the potential benefit from the wind-up, and that you have to keep your body and your arms connected or matched up.
Well, having a powerful pivot won't really do you any good if the arms are disconnected from it. The arms have to stay connected or matched up, as the common terminology seems to like to talk about it. This simply means keeping the arms and hands together in front of the chest where they started all the way to the end of the backswing. You just keep your arms close together and in front of your body while your body turns back to the top of the backswing.
Once again, Hank, it goes back to stuff that you've talked about here, in various segments throughout the dew sweepers. That is when you're reach the end of your flexibility and your pivot stops, your arms need to stop too.
Yeah, I think the biggest pitfall, Tony, is people having a preconceived idea about how far back they ought to swing. And basically what you do is to turn back as far as you can without losing the support in your lower body, without letting it go. And you let your arms go back however far your pivot carries them. You don't try to swing them on back past where your pivot stops. So, we've gone in a big circle, but it's all the way back to the pivot being sort of the master of the arms in the swing.
Now, to clear this up for everybody, if you let your arms run on past your pivot, do you cost yourself power by trying to get your arms all the way back to parallel?
Well, you absolutely do, because then somewhere in the forward swing, the body's got to slow down for the arms to catch back up. And if your body turn is the power source, the last thing in the world you want to do is to slow it down.
Well, Hank, I think we've helped some people out there today. In your second part of your series, we've handled the hands and the wrists and the arms and their role in the wind-up of the backswing. And next week we've got, I believe, on tap is a properly sequenced forward swing to help people hit it further.
Tony, we do, and this stuff can sound confusing when you're listening to it, and that's the reason we put it on the website so people can go back through and read it. And in golf, understanding comes from doing, not from listening or even reading. So what we need for our listeners to do is to get out there and try this stuff so that they have some hands-on experience, and they need to communicate with us in terms of how they're doing and what they'd like to hear about in terms of trying to help them shoot lower scores.
Well, for sure, one of the things I'm excited about, Hank, is on dewsweepersgolfshow.com are the copies of these segments. But for people that are really interested in learning how to hit the ball further and what generates power, you do a wonderful job of explaining the concepts that are at work there in the golf swing that produce power.
Well, I appreciate it, Tony. It's always fun to be on your show.
Hank, we'll talk to you next week as we do another installment of Power here on the Tee with Hank Johnson.
Thanks. Take care.